Order, order. Hello and welcome to Reporters Without Orders, a podcast where we talk about what made news, what didn't, and some things that absolutely shouldn't have. I'm your host, Akanksha Kumar, and joining me today in the studio is my colleague, Pratyush Deep. Hi, Pratyush.
Hi,
How's the
Akanksha.
Josh?
It's good, man. It's morning and
Right. Also joining us online is Kritika Goel, Deputy Editor Fact Check at the Quint. Hi, Kritika. Nice to see you after a long time, and thanks for joining Reporters Without Orders.
Thanks, Akanksha, and thank you for having me.
Kritika and her colleague Abhilash Malik from the Quint have recently done a story that establishes how the hashtag boycott Bollywood trends are closely linked to Facebook pages which were once a part of Justice for SSR campaign. Bollywood actor Sushant Singh Rajput, who died of suicide in 2020, his case was suddenly embroiled in a lot of controversy, and there was a bandwagon of certain trolling groups who would regularly rake up the issue, spew hatred in the name of Justice for SSR campaign. So, Kritika, my first question to you is after I read the story, of course, your investigation has also categorized the kind of users. There are two categories who every time jump into the fray. A movie is slated for release. But how do these specific Facebook pages, which were linked to Justice for SSR campaign, they play a role in amplifying content related to hashtag boycott Bollywood?
So Akansha, when we were looking into these Facebook groups, Facebook pages, we realized, and that's what we found out through this investigation, that there were two major categories. One is what you've described really well. These were the pages groups which were linked to Justice for Sushant Singh Rajput. These were users who thought that Sushant Singh, who basically came together and they demanded justice for the actor who allegedly died by suicide in June 2020. Mostly, we found that the conversations were around nepotism. It was around how Bollywood didn't was basically unfair to the actor, and these were the conversations which later led to these boycott calls for Bollywood movies. One interesting thing that we noticed was that, irrespective of the star in the movie, there was some sort of a story that was linked to the actor, that was linked to the director or the producer of the movie, and they would tell you why you should boycott them, why you should not be basically funding their movies. By funding, I basically mean paying for the tickets, going to the movie hall, and not helping them earn money, because these were people who were the people. These are basically byproducts of either nepotism, or it was because of them. Somehow they put these groups, people in these groups, they really staunchly believed that these were the people who are responsible for Sushant Singh Rajput's death. And of course, I mean, just a very quick reminder or a recap, if you remember back in 2020, the kind of conspiracy theories that we saw around Sushant Singh Rajput's death. All of these groups were active. I mean, of course, I can't say these were the same groups, because that was a separate investigation that we had done back then. But a lot of these groups look like groups were active back then as well. People were talking about justice for him. And these are the same groups which are again talking about Sushant Singh Rajput, and how, one should not watch one should not watch Bollywood movies, should boycott Bollywood movies, because, it's against nepotism, they didn't support a rising actor, and all of those conversations. Another very interesting thing that I'd like to mention is that not all the stories that they are referring to are factual. Like, for instance, there's a certain sort of a trend that we've started noticing around Pathan as well, which is, I think, releasing in January next year. So, like, when they're talking about Shah Rukh Khan, they mentioned that Shah Rukh Khan had once said that if Narendra Modi becomes the Prime Minister of India, then I will leave the country and I'll go to Pakistan. Now, that's a really old hoax. That's something that's been debunked by fact checkers. And that's a quote which has been falsely attributed to him. So basically, long story short, what I'm trying to say is that irrespective of who the actor is, what they've done in the past, their old interviews, their remarks, and sometimes even factually incorrect information is attributed to them, and they are making these calls. They're basically telling people to boycott their movies. That's largely what these groups are doing. That's largely what they are telling people about.
And I think this entire investigation that you and Abhilash have done, it stretches over a period of a month. Now, I also just wanted to understand, busting fake news is not an easy task, especially on a daily basis. So, what was the process of, identifying this trend was like, and how were you guys able to establish the link between the hashtag with certain particular Facebook pages? Because I believe that these are not random Facebook pages, but there are dedicated portals, like, which are known to put out extremely atrocious content. Like Creately, we know that it is aligned on the right and doesn't really mind putting out even fake news. So how do these right wing portals play a role in terms of amplifying that content? And is there any direct link between certain influencers who might be followers of BJP or have links with the RSS?
Akanksha, I'll answer the first part of the question first about how were we able to establish a link. It's a long process. We started tracking these groups in the first week of September, and we did this till the last week of September. This was before Brahmastra released, and this was after Lal Singh Chadda had released. So, of course, this was a time when we started seeing all of these conversations, and we were seeing how these people were anti-Hindus. The movies that they were making were anti-Hindus according to these groups, basically. So we started noticing these trends, and we started looking into the tweets, started looking into the Facebook pages, and using certain tools that are available to us, like let's say CrowdTangle. We started identifying. We started looking at groups and pages which were constantly talking about boycott Bollywood or using similar hashtags. So that's how basically we narrowed down on our search and we identified some of these pages. Now the next thing was, when we were able to identify the pages, we kept on tracking them regularly. I'd also want to mention one thing here, that of course these are not the only groups. These are some groups that we are highlighting through our story. So once we were able to narrow down, let's say on these 10 groups or these 15 groups, we started tracking their activities on a daily basis. The idea was also to be able to identify the origin of the post. Now, let's say, for instance, you mentioned Creately. If somebody else has shared it on some other group, we were also trying to figure out who's the source of the post, who's the original creator, or who's the person who started this. Um, the first part, I don't think so. I need to repeat that about Justice for Sushant Singh Rajput pages. The other category or the other kind of users that we saw were promoting or amplifying this boycott Bollywood trend were the right wing groups. They coined this term called Urdu Wood for Bollywood, and they blamed Bollywood filmmakers, actors, directors, everybody for being anti-Hindu, for showing characters, for propagating anti-Hindu sentiments through their movies. That was the general trend or the broad overview, as I can say. Some of the influencers, if I may say, there were certain people that we noticed who had massive following on Facebook, who were not just sharing content from other pages, but they were also creating their own content. Some of them were Hindu Army Chief Sushil Tiwari, I'm sorry. Then there was Hindu Samaj Party's Mohit Raj. These guys weren't just promoting content that was being shared by some random pages, but these guys were actually producing content. They were making videos. They were blaming Bollywood. They were saying that these actors um, are actually these are the actors who are portraying um, uh, they're just not showing the Hindu culture in the right light through their movies. So basically, they asked and urged all the Hindus to come together and boycott their movies. These were some of the influencers, I would say, who were really promoting the trend. And if you just a cursory glance through their Facebook page, you'd see multiple such videos, you'd see multiple such posts, you'd see a lot of conversation on these pages where you can notice the kind of narrative they are trying to build. Because through and through, they are talking about one thing, that is how there is a common agenda that all the movies are trying to basically the common notion or the common argument was that everybody in all of these directors, actors through their movies were trying to portray Hindus in a bad light. So that's essentially what the common sentiment was.
Right. So I think as a journalist, probably all of us have got used to the idea that every time there is a protest being led by people, there would be certain elements and certain sections of media who demonize the protests altogether. But such is the political climate in our country these days that every time there is a movie which has a Muslim actor as the protagonist, so be it Amir Khan in Lal Singh Chaddha or be it Shah Rukh Khan in his upcoming movie Pathan, there are certain forces and people at play who want to demonize the actor and his body of work only because of his religious identity. But this kind of hatred is not only restricted to Muslim actors. Some like Ranbir Kapoor or Deepika Padukone, they are also at the receiving end only because of a previous comment or because they decided to support a protest. We'll continue to talk more about it in our podcast. The video version ends here. For the full podcast, log on to newslaundry.com where you can hear the full podcast.
The subscription model is something that keeps News Laundry afloat, but we need hundreds of thousands of people to completely transform the news ecosystem. So you pay for news, so it serves you. So click on the link with this video, subscribe to News Laundry and pay to keep news free और गर्व से कहो मेरे खर्च पर आज़ाद है खबरें.